Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSPmagazine. You're listening to a new Redefining Security podcast. Have you ever thought that we are selling cybersecurity insincerely, buying it indiscriminately, and deploying it ineffectively? Perhaps we are. So let's look at how we can organize a successful InfoSec program that integrates people, process, technology, and culture to drive growth and protect business value. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Imperva is the cybersecurity leader whose mission is to protect data and all paths to it with a suite of integrated application and data security solutions. Learn more at imperva.com. Reversing Labs is the leading provider of explainable threat intelligence solutions that dissects complex file-based threats. Its hybrid cloud titanium platform enables digital business resiliency, detects new high-risk threat vectors, and automates SOC and threat hunting processes. Learn more at reversinglabs.com.
We are. It's a new episode of Redefining Security here on ITSPmagazine. This is Sean Martin, and this happens to be part of our ongoing, what we call on location, even if it's virtual, on location coverage of many events that we care about. This one happens to be around DEF CON 29, which was in person finally, but also had a lot of virtual elements to it as well. So definitely a hybrid mode. And the theme was Can't Stop the Signal. And I think we have at least one story, if not a couple here. Exactly.
Yes.
One of our guests is wearing the shirt for those that can't see listening to the podcast. We came together, even if we couldn't be there in person with each other. And I have two amazing guests, one good friend who I know for a long time, and somebody I'm meeting for the first time, even though he shares the same name as my co-founder, Marco. But Aaron and Marco, welcome to the show. I'm going to pass the ball to you, Aaron, first for a quick intro for those who may not know you yet. Aaron Guzman.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Great to be on here. So my name is Aaron Guzman. I lead the product security team over at Cisco Meraki. Outside of work, I'm involved with OWASP, especially on the IoT front, to lead the IoT project and a number of sub-projects. In addition to OWASP, I co-chair the IoT working group with Cloud Security Alliance. So pretty much in the weeds, day in, day out with IoT, firmware, and hardware. And have fun, right? From the educational perspective, get folks kind of leveled up, but also the awareness side of it as well. That we're focused on from both organizations. So really happy to be in a kind of a leadership role to help kind of shape and guide some of the tools and guidance in this area, especially in recent days, where remote and pandemic has kind of fast-tracked a lot of these IoT devices and appliances and networks, and increasing that risk, right? Expanding that profile. But again, thanks for having me, Sean. I'll pass it over to you, Marco.
Thank you for having me, Sean. My name is Marco Figueroa. I'm the principal threat researcher at SentinelOne. We do a lot of APT tracking, writing reports, blogs. I'm also a host of my own podcast, Hack Chat, that's under the SentinelOne umbrella. And before joining SentinelOne, I was at Intel for 7 years as a senior security researcher.
Nice. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Marco, and hopefully someday in person, assuming you make it through this storm that you're about to face.
Yeah. So I think I have a quick good story to start off.
Let's go.
I was supposed to have Hack Chat live and have it live in Black Hat and go through DEF CON. And the Saturday before Black Hat, I started feeling a scratch on my throat. And I was like, I'm not liking this. Sunday, I woke up with a heavy cough and I was like, oh my God. So I went and I got tested for COVID. I was negative for COVID, but positive for a flu. Meaning, in the climate we live in, you can't cough at all, especially at a conference. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to skip Black Hat and DEF CON. So I was bummed out. But I said the show must go on. So I decided to do the live podcast, the live stream from, my house and do it remotely. And, I had help. I had a lot of help getting it. And I had all the guests come in, my manager, walk them over to the booth that we had. And, hour after hour after hour, we got, everything squared away. And I was so happy. And the following day, we did a live stream for the FOMO crew that wasn't at Black Hat DEF CON, and all of us were just like so bummed out. And we had so many different stories, especially from day 2, on how this pandemic has affected us. We're all about sharing and being around like-minded individuals, and it's hard to do that. You could do, how many Zooms can you do before you start getting tired of being on a Zoom, and you want to just have that vibe and just rub shoulders with people? Because for me, I haven't been in a place with more than 40 people, so that's going on a year and a half now. So it's been tough. And right after that, I had to come out to Puerto Rico to take care of a few family matters. But there's a tropical storm brewing that's gonna land in around 8 hours. So I'm excited because in California we do not get rain, so I will be outside. I will enjoy that rain. Probably stand outside for 5 minutes. I want to the people, paint the picture for the listeners out there.
Exactly. So, soak up that moisture, man. Maybe
Yes.
send a little over to Cali.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Noah could use a bit of moisture. And I mean, there's no question that the community is strong, and it always impresses me to see the number of folks coming together to do the work they do. Obviously, you both work for commercial companies, but I presume, Mark, you're in the same boat as Aaron, that you do so much to give back to the community and to give back to the industry. And Aaron, I've seen you, I met through OWASP, and I've seen you at CSA events as well, and I've seen you speak and the volunteering work. Tell me a little bit about what your role was with respect to that at this year's DEF CON. And I don't know if you went to Black Hat as well, but
so
you're up to.
Yeah, of course. So I did participate at DEF CON remotely in the hybrid experience, right? So it's obviously a different feel and vibe, and I was lucky enough to speak at the BioHacking Village on some of the work we are doing with OWASP and Cloud Security Alliance that impacts medical security. So we have a number of initiatives for both groups that directly affect medical device security, as well as the incidents that come about through medical devices, and whether that is a vulnerability disclosure or a CVE for a medical device, or kind of the IT infrastructure is infected by malware or ransomware, which happened 3-4 years ago with WannaCry. So I was able to speak on some of those projects at the BioHacking Village on Saturday. So I had a session there, and I guess kind of to speak on the experience just more generally, at least for the BioHacking Village, and I'll kind of go through some of the other ones I attended talks and kind of was going through on Discord and chatting with folks. The BioHacking Village had this cool little experience where it was almost like a conference that they had where you walk in through the door and they have different doors for CTF, for the device lab, for a chill out room, and for the speakers lab. And, each one of those had folks in there. They had, activities and kind of a little community, all kind of driven through a web browser, which was kind of cool. I hadn't seen that before. Other villages had kind of either Twitch or YouTube, right, streaming directly, from Discord as well. But I thought it was cool where BioHacking Village had this little experience, and where for the speakers they had a kind of like a theater setting, and they had the speakers kind of on the main screen there. But it was really cool. I think there's obviously I think a big difference from like in person, right? Like Marco was saying. The vibe and the energy and rubbing shoulders with people you haven't seen in such a long time, and you're sharing research, like, or folks you really only see at DEF CON, and like you look forward to hanging out and and coming together in kind of these, bigger groups. I know with Marco and I, when we hang out at DEF CON, we have this whole crew that it's entourage, where we go from, lobby to lobby or party.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
We go at least 20, 25 deep. And then I think, what it comes down to for me is this game has given me so much, right? And I want to try to pour everything that I've got within me back out to the community, because from the lifestyle we live to just the enjoyment of learning, we're all lifelong learners, right? So we're constantly learning. And I was speaking with someone over the weekend, and they were saying, man, I don't have that drive because there's not a conference for me to present at. And it's the same thing. Like, it's you get those highs and lows because there's no in-person. You don't know if the con's going to go up. The remote like sessions on Twitch and everyone, you're just speaking to a webcam. It's not a vibe. And one of the things I love, especially when I like give talks, and Aaron, I'm pretty sure you get the same, is after, you present, you have conversations, and then maybe the next day someone might see you at a bar and it's like, I was there at your talk. I want to ask you these questions. And that vibe, that connection, you can't get remotely. It just doesn't happen. And I miss that the most. And that's why I was having so much FOMO. I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm sick. I'm not going. And then, I had these live streams that helped me, lift the curtain on what everyone else is going through. Everyone else is feeling the same vibe. I thrive off of conferences.
Same. Like, I would be going like 15, 20 conferences, and loving the interaction with folks, and the same thing kind of, people who attend your talks and presentations and kind of sharing even further deeper conversations afterwards, and sometimes collaborating. But yeah, that's kind of the difference now, right? Like, the pandemic kind of changed some of those interactions, at least for the time being. I think hybrid is probably going to be an approach that most conferences, bigger conferences, might take up. But I think it's completely different in the sense of, if I would go to DEF CON in person, I would be hanging out and spending time with my friends and like catching up that way and learning a different way, like face to face and asking questions. And the hybrid experience, I'm actually attending more talks than I would otherwise. I'm not waiting in these long hour lines. But I'm also not interacting with the people as much, with the groups of people, and building that bond. And I've met so many people from DEF CON that I'm still friends today, and that's kind of like where we all just get together and like, catch up.
And lifelong friends. A lot of times when I go to DEF CON, I don't think for the last 4 or 5 years I've been to one talk. For me, it's all about having those conversations and then walking away with a deep knowledge in something that I didn't know, or I'm having a problem and I know a like-minded researcher that's working on the same thing. It's like, hey, why don't you look at this? That happened literally with Aaron and I. We were at RSA. We were at the W Hotel. Everybody, it's packed. It's jam-packed. This is right before COVID hit. Like, once that finished, COVID hit, there were no more conferences. But in that conference, we sat, was it that conference? It was.
It was.
We sat down at the W, and I'm like, look, I'm doing this research, and I'm having issues reversing this sort of binary. And he was like, well, did you try this? I was like, I got my laptop right now. I'm just going to pop it open. Let's go for it. And we were there for an hour or two, reverse engineering a binary to look for vulnerabilities. And, it was the luck of the draw that he was there, and I knew he was doing stuff like that. And we just, that's a great example of why we go to conferences.
Yeah, and it's funny, I saw a tweet, and it's not directly related to research, because I think they were talking about people's favorite firewall rules. So not exactly research, but the tweet or the message was basically that from afar, you could hear this conversation taking place and escalating, and you could tell the conversation was nerdy and technical. and you almost thought they were going to get into a fight. And then the punchline was, but they were just arguing over firewall rules. Right? And my point of that is, it's hard to have a multi-person conversation where everybody's kind of talking on each other and building, and the passion comes through, and you kind of miss a lot of that as well. You have those one-on-one experiences you just described, Marco, with Aaron, and you have these group experiences that you can't really do over Zoom necessarily.
It sort of feels like transactional sometimes, right? Like,
right.
And intentional when someone's reaching out, like through Discord or a question on Slack, or even on Twitter, right? It's kind of like just, here's the question, and like that's as far as it goes. But if you're in person, right, like it goes that deeper level of, oh, where are you from? Oh, what type of work, and all that kind of just happens organically that wouldn't otherwise happen, when you're just kind of like, oh, well, I have to respond to this message. Or, this person's asking a really weird question. I don't know what they mean. And you kind of have to like keep poking, depending where the person's from. Right. But I mean, even Sean, right. Like we've seen each other, I think like in Ireland and Rome at conferences, right. Like we'll catch up then, and like, we'll go and eat and things like that. But it's kind of, relationships like that, I kind of, have kind of dwindled a bit because there's not that opportunity to connect. Those environments.
Certainly miss you in Rome and in Ireland, but happy to have you on here. And let's talk about the work you did for BioHacking Village. You did a presentation there. Let's unpack that a little bit. What did you talk about? What did you present? Sure.
I started with going through some of the vulnerable firmware projects that we have, IoT Goat. And that was meant to be a space, a learning ground or a playground for folks who want to learn how to hack firmware and the methods of compromising firmware, finding vulnerabilities and exploiting them, and providing challenge walkthroughs to give them the opportunity to learn, and be able to, I guess, provide kind of that backing to not make the same mistakes in those devices that they may be developing from the medical perspective. But just IoT generally was the idea there. But then we talked about a couple of other projects that were related to medical security in the sense of like software development and testing with ISVS, the IoT Security Verification Standard. One project that we're tidying up at the moment. The pandemic has, it's been a rough year with that, but essentially it is a good basis of normalizing test coverage, but also security requirements for medical devices, but IoT as a whole. And then we just went through a couple more projects on the Cloud Security Alliance front. One that's similar from like an IoT kind of enterprise security program, which is the IoT controls matrix. And that consists of like safety and privacy and, asset management, security testing activities. So it's more like processes, procedures, controls, and then the kind of cadence or pattern in which you should do these activities. So it really models the cloud control matrix, and it's sort of our flagship project with the IoT working group. But we do have some cool new initiatives that we're going to release within the month, and that is the medical device incident response playbook. And I kind of highlighted this in the presentation in regards to kind of the model that we based upon the IR phases, and it was one of the NIST special edition. I forgot the exact number, but essentially we highlighted kind of the kind of 7 key scenarios within a health delivery organization, and when you can disconnect medical devices from the network and have no safety impact on the patient, or vice versa, or when a medical device can be safely removed from a network, but it depends on the network connectivity for its purpose. Think of maybe like a patch to monitor your sugar levels. And there really isn't no implications that way. But we try to tie in the medical device manufacturers, the health delivery organizations, the the legal folks, but also, additional stakeholders outside of those groups, like the ISACs, the sharing organizations. That way others can learn from what they learned from that incident. And there's a couple of them out there. There's a BioISAC, there's a HISAC, and then, usually that kind of loops around to FBI or InfraGard, some of those other groups. But at a high level, those are kind of the main areas that we touched on Saturday's presentation.
That's a lot. And that's one of the things that I like about the work you're doing, Aaron, is it isn't just OWASP and AppSec, and it isn't just CSA and cloud. Clearly, you're tying underneath the both umbrellas, I guess. IoT. There's the device itself as well, and really, it's the package of that and the data and the human element. All those things together deliver an experience, right? And it isn't just about confidentiality. You touched on availability, right? If the device is connected or not, and also integrity. I don't know if you got into any of the integrity aspects of it, a bad network or bad data, perhaps.
Yep.
But there's a lot to cover there. And I'm wondering, did you see, and again, maybe in hybrid mode, it's kind of hard to get this. Maybe 2 years ago when I was there with Bo in the BioHacking Village, we had manufacturers in the room, and you could see them embracing and soaking in like a sponge all this data. Do you feel the industry, not the cybersecurity industry, the medical industry, is embracing the work that you're doing and the others are doing?
I think the medical security industry, whether it's the health delivery organizations or the manufacturers, I think they're kind of going through this maturity and evolution. Now that I think, back in 2014, 2015, the FDA kind of got involved with the pre-market guidance, post-market guidance. And now, medical device manufacturers have security teams, or at least to an extent. And there's been a lot of research in this area, right, with not only pacemakers, but, all the others that have been presented at previous DEF CONs, right? And they're sort of hitting on these operational learnings with, patching medical devices in their networks or for customers, and like where the kind of demarcation line is between each of the parties, the patient, the clinical staff and leadership, and how fast can we get these updates if they're critical, but also like how realistic is it to roll these firmware updates on an ongoing basis, and do they have the capabilities of to perform those updates across a fleet of devices, because a lot of them weren't designed in that way, and the clinical staff, their expertise isn't necessarily on the technology side, right? They're more on less technology, but more on the health and their craft, right? So there's really this this approach to creating some of these guidance documents and playbooks to help some of those organizations mature in that way and know that there are these resources out there that they can adopt internally and employ and operationalize internally with their stakeholders. And so we focused a lot on the preparation side of the incident response playbook, as well as the sharing, and they're all very important. But there isn't many kind of I guess referenceable architectures and practices that would be applicable to kind of their workflow. And I keep mentioning like clinical leadership. Some of those scenarios we break down what the ideal workflow would be when they would escalate to clinical leadership, and who would they connect with, and what they would do on the patient, and what that kind of criteria is. Because right now it's kind of they really don't know, or it's kind of case by case, or they may assume it's not the medical device causing the problem, or let's say there is a novel vulnerability released, and having that plan, right, to be able to prepare when that does happen, those sorts of events. Hopefully it's not too late, right?
Exactly. And I think there's if we look at other industries outside of healthcare, they've been doing it a long time, banking, finance, for example, and it's pretty straightforward what to do if there's a breach of data, card data, right? And
Yep.
so it's kind of pretty much self-contained. You know the systems, but you're talking about medical devices and teams that are dealing with people's lives. And that to your point, that's their focus. They're not worried about the data on the device or whatnot. But Marco, I want to turn to you.
Sure.
I'm curious. What were some of the things that stood out from you from the hack chats that you had during the week?
I just going there, I wanted to add on to what was Aaron saying. I think a lot of times, and add on to this, Aaron. Medical companies that do not focus on security becomes just a cost, right? Security's in the red. When I was at a prior chip company, security wasn't taken serious until the shit hit the fan, excuse my French. And then it was, oh my God, the hardware is defective. And now we're going to have all these little pen testing, red team and source code auditing. It had to take that and something real big, like the news was everywhere about the defect and the security vuln, and they took it serious. Do you find, Aaron, that it's a cost and obviously there's talent shortages, but when a company looks for people that aren't that serious, it's like, how do you get top tier talent when you haven't put those building blocks in place to then attract that top talent?
Yeah, that's tough. I think like for the medical device or the medical device manufacturers, a lot what they're looking towards is kind of FDA kind of carrying that load. And that's where all those assumptions happen. Well, they're doing the validation and verification. Well, they are, well, it passed these, pre-market, under this umbrella, it's allowed. But as far as like the teams to build out, on the medical front, you do have your internal CISOs for the HDO, Health Delivery Organization, and maybe a few folks, right, on security. If you're like the Mayo Clinic, right? But it's not as common to come by, I think. But some of the work that we do, we socialize not only with the folks in the industry who are the CISOs and also doctors, the clinicians, and then others outside, right? Again, because it's the thing is, right, like any other type of industry, speaking the same language is always kind of that barrier. Everyone kind of has their own jargon of how you explain, risk, right? It's the subjective pieces of language that is always a challenge to, from that, to get past. And some of those folks, it's still a process. But I think there's a lot more that not only that we're putting out with Cloud Security Alliance, MITRE, and then FDA as well. They're refreshing that pre-market guidance from 2014, 2015. Again, kind of going to that next level of maturity, from that front. So yeah, Marco, it's not as common as a big tech company to kind of get the high talent that that you would think, and the turnover is also somewhat high, I think, generally in security. But that's a different topic.
Sean, go ahead. You're going to ask me about the hack chat stuff.
Well, no, it was a fabulous question, and it's one that we ask quite often on this channel. Is what's the value of investing in security, right? And it's often just seen as a cost, as you said, and not even as an investment, let alone a value add. And so maybe with that in mind still, I'm wondering if there were any key takeaways from the hack chats that you did, other conversations you had during the week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what I loved about the first day I did hack chat was getting that understanding how Black Hat, as well as DEF CON, right after Black Hat, how was it? What was the feel? What was it like? And they were like, it's so different. It's empty. It's like, it's like a kind of a ghost town, but not really. And, when I was doing these live streams, I was getting some like pictures from friends of the keynotes, and usually, Black Hat keynotes is in a stadium and it's filled, and this was in a small room and it was almost empty. So you got the vibe just off of the opening keynote. Oh, it's going to be one of those cons, a smaller con, where instead of like, the Black Hat extravaganza. And, people that were there were just scratching their heads. It's like, it's so different and it's a weird feeling. Nobody wants to like really interact. And even like at certain parties, everybody was just a little timid because of all the fear mongering that was happening, about the whole Delta variant. But what I got from it was the talks were good, even though it was somewhat pre-recorded. And the people I spoke to, they were just happy to be out. It was like, dude, even though this is not what I, remember about Black Hat, I'm just happy I took a flight. I'm just happy I'm with people. And if I know 3 or 4 people, that's good for me, right? Because, I think, Aaron, have we seen each other since? No, we haven't seen each other
since RSA.
Since RSA. And that's really kind of the vibe. And I was like just yearning for that. So the people that I spoke to, they were like, man, I'm just happy that I'm out. One of the guys that I had wrote on LinkedIn after DEF CON was like, dude, it was the best 4 days I've had since the pandemic hit, right? And don't get me wrong, of course, Black Hat DEF CON wasn't the way it was, but it's just so good to be out. It's just so good to handshake with other people. And that was the vibe that I was getting. Now, on the FOMO side, on the next day, I did the FOMO Black Hat. The people, this is hitting hard. It's hitting hard mentally for people that yearn for collaboration, that is excited. I interviewed someone. I don't want to put his story up. Jason Haddix, watch it. Watch that stream. But he was saying, it's been very hard for me the last year because for me to put out these new tools or new techniques, I need to get the feel, the vibe from the crowd, and I'm pumped up. I'm excited. And he was like, it could be ego, but that's what I need to put out my best work the next conference I go to.
It's the energy, right? That feeds you, right?
Yeah, it's the vibe. He's like, it's an ego thing probably, but it feeds me to put out the coolest stuff and to do live streams. And he's like, dude, I'm like, for the last year, I've been like, why work so hard if I'm not even going to be able to show it? And if I do submit it to a con, I'm only going to have 100 views on there, rather than being at DEF CON and having a room filled with 1,000 people. It's energy. It's a vibe. So
all about the vibes.
It's all about the vibes. It's all about the vibes. So that's what.
Well, let me ask you this, Marco, because I know Jason, and I love what he does as well, and it's an interesting point that he's making. I'm wondering if this is the feeling that we're getting. Has this impacted our research? Are we finding less things? Are we disclosing fewer things? Are we? I don't know. Are we leaving ourselves a little open because we're just not? Into it.
I think there's two tails to that. There's the super uber researcher like a Jason Haddix that he's not getting the vibe because he's not presenting. And then you have these criminal syndicates that are just blowing the roof off. They're like, I love the pandemic because I'm not going out and I'm hacking and I'm doing these things. And then you're seeing Revo and all these ransomware gangs are going ham, right? It's the reason because for me, I would say it's more people in the house. What am I going to do? Some people are motivated, some people are not. And I think it's that vibe, right? You need to figure out what works for oneself. What's going to get me up in the morning motivated and energized to do, right? And Jason was like, look, what gets me energized to do is presenting, putting out cool research, getting feedback from the industry, and then being inspired at the cons to go home and fire it up. When I did these interviews back to back, I was fired up because I got to speak to 8 different people for an hour about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I extracted a lot of good information for me, right? And I hope the viewers felt the same way, but that was my vibe. Like, I needed it. And I got off and I was like on cloud 9. So it all depends. You're right. Some people maybe miss an opportunity, but then I think people have to look at themselves. What do they need to get out of a funk if they're in a funk?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a ton of research that is being released. I think in the beginning, everyone was like, "Oh, cool, my calendar's open now. I'm gonna, bear down." Like, at least that's how I approached it. Like, I'm gonna get through all this long laundry list, not thinking about all the other, noise and health and everything else going on, right? That contributed to kind of break, that mental well-being and awareness of what was going on. But I think people are still researching just as much as they were before, and there's still all these novel attacks that are being released, and these this research on HTTP version 2, right? That James Kettle from Port Swigert put out. So I think all the interesting stuff's still there, and we're still getting all the fun car hacking. It's just at a different pace, but I think that the pace is depends on the person and the people who are working together and how they do it.
I think in terms of research and what I have seen and spoken to many people, in-person events, I think the bug bounty crowd has been affected the most. Because I spoke to 3 different people and they're like, I don't do bug bounty that much anymore. Why? I'm like, why? There's no drive for that event. So people do the bug bounty. It's the same thing. They do the bug bounty so they could go live to an event and hopefully hold the MVP award. So a lot of those people that I spoke to don't even really do, bug bounty, and potentially that in that aspect, it has affected, not only the bounties in general, but companies that potentially were waiting on bounty hunters to submit bugs, and they're not doing. Some of the best guys. Santiago Lopez, to me, is like the number 1 guy in bug bounty. He's fallen off the face of the earth. I know one of the programs that he had bugs, he would find 3 bugs a week on, without question. In the beginning of the pandemic, they pulled the plug on bug bounties. He's like, I'm good. I'm gonna take a vacation for a while and see what happens. I haven't spoken to him for 6 months. That's unlike him. So I'm like, I'm still trying to speak. So that's a good example of how the pandemic has affected researchers. That's real. That's tangible, where you pull the plug on it, and I was finding 3-4 bugs and making a living off of it. And now I'm not even motivated because I know now I got to learn a whole program and the ins and outs of it, and not going to get, what I was getting every single week consistently finding bugs in your program.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, and I'm wondering. A lot of what we're talking about here is community driven, which clearly I'm a fan of. To look at it from a business perspective, I don't know if I can, as we start to wrap here, maybe a quick word from each of you. Given what we just talked about, what should organizations do given this reality? Do they need to staff differently? Do they need to treat their existing staff differently? I don't know. Any thoughts?
I will start with that. I think empathy. I think when you come and you put yourself in other people's shoes, how do you support your security team and elevate them? Hey, how can I be of service to you? What can I do for you? How can I help you grow? What do you need from us? Instead of just taking, or however they do it, it's, sometimes it could be a one-way street. everybody's having an issue, whether it's home or while working or just in general. It's like, how can we provide value to you rather than the other way around? And I think for me, that's what I would say. It doesn't have to be technical. It's like, how can I be a servant? You want training? Great. You want more time off? Great. Because this is taking a toll on people, right? And especially now with the Delta variants, they just mandated masks in California again. What does that mean? That means if you start to see that curve, the exponential growth happen again, we're talking about closures again. So that's not, maybe people might think about that, but that affects the mental health of workers. Like for me, I try to meditate and keep myself around positive people and have conversations. But what about other people that are not in tune with themselves and their home isn't right? And it's like, just take time out to say, what do you need from me? Let's go one-on-one. What can I do for you? And I think that's the best way to start.
Totally agree with starting with empathy. Now more than ever. I mean, I know the team that I lead and the folks that might, they're all different kind of, they work in a different way. Their mental health, they're all in different states. And as Marco was saying, empathy first when you talk to folks, not only in your team, but outside. And I think that leaders should have that top of mind. But, outside of kind of, empathy and mental well-being, which, and the awareness around that, and how folks work the best in the times, like kind of being flexible in that way. I always kind of go back to this interoperable state of not only from a technical sense, when you're building things, make sure it's, in an interoperable kind of method to where it can be reused in multiple ways. More like, think of kind of like templates or solutions that can be used more than once. Because scalability is a big concern, and there's only so much talent on the team and bandwidth that interoperable solutions and designs should be opted whenever the opportunity is there, and again for that scalability. And for other security teams out there, outside of I talked about empathy, interoperability. But extending your security team by leveraging some of these crowdsourced platforms, whatever that platform may be. But there are teams around the world. There are folks around the world that would like to poke at your apps that are public facing, your infrastructure, and I think having that platform and that kind of crowdsourcing ability with vulnerability disclosures out there, it'll help you get in front of any incidents that would happen in the future. So I guess a top three there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, especially now, people need to speak more about like mental health, especially, you look at some of these responders working on these ransomware cases, right? They're doing 50, 60, 70 hours, and you have the pandemic on top, then you have family and everything like that. So that's why I want to bring to attention, like, a lot of people, it's about work, go, and make it and stuff like that. But, how do you, step back and look at the forest rather than the tree? And to me, I think it's huge. It's a conversation that needs to be had now before, it's too late for someone that you might know. It's a conversation that needs to be had, stress.
Burnout's real. Burnout certainly hit the industry like a ton of bricks. Like I've seen multiple people that I know literally came to me like, I'm done in tech. I don't even want to work in tech anymore. And I was like, whoa, take some time off. Like, we'll talk, next month or whatever, like just, get some time away. But yeah, I've seen people just get burned to the ground, not only from the work that they're, their day to day, but, family events going on and, all at once. Right. And it was tough. It was tough on people.
I think, people listening to this understand, set some borders, set some clear boundaries. Family first, get everything. Look, you can always get another job. I think people are afraid of pandemic. No, there's more hiring. People are hiring way more now than before. Like,
market is competitive right now. Holy moly.
Like, you got to bring a Brinks truck. to get some of these comments, man. So you just really got to understand, man. Like, set some boundaries, some clear boundaries. It's not going to happen. This is what's going to happen. I got to take XYZ. I'm sorry. Oh, you need me? That's cool. Like, all right, let me go then. Like, I need to do this. This is for my mental health. This is what I need to do. And I think sometimes a lot of people don't have the bollocks or the testicular fortitude to just lay it down and say, hey, this is what needs to happen. I need this for my health. Like, great, you have your goals and stuff that you need done. That's cool. And I need what I need done. I need to go to this quinceañera that I got to take 3 days off or whatever it needs to be done. That is your mental health that you need. And vice versa, if your home is not right, it's like, how do you support someone? How do you help them? Hey, take time off. I'll never forget. I had a boss he was a manager that led from the front at Intel, and I was going through something. I mean, it was, my mom had a horrific accident. He said, do what you need to do. Forget about work. You need to move to New York? Go ahead. You need time off? Go ahead. Don't ever worry about it. I got your back. Take care of what you need to take care of. And those are the bosses that say it's about being a human first. And I never forget what he said. He said, the reason I did this for you is because someone did this for me. And I would chew glass for the guy who did it for me. And those are the people that, like, you really want to work with. And I stay in touch with him today because I was in a dark place in terms of work, and my family really needs me, and my mom has half of her skull off, and I'm going through it, right? This is real life crisis. Like, you want me to get something done and do some metrics? My mind isn't there right now. So I think, it's one thing about putting food on the table, and it's another thing of, like, your mental health before you've driven, yourself out of the industry because you're burnt out. I don't know what burnt out is. I heard of it. I don't believe in it. I think if you love what you do, there's no way you could burn me out of this industry. Try to burn me out of this industry. I'll leave the company rather than being like that. I just don't know it. I don't understand it. But
everyone's different.
That's a different topic.
Yeah. Well, I think the main points here for me are everybody has their own things that they care about. Some actually may need the work for distraction from other challenges they're facing. Who knows? I think with change, oftentimes comes the need for additional change, right? You kind of need to kind of mold to the situation. And I think we've had a lot of change thrust upon us. And if we can support each other and have some empathy, as both of you said, I think we're in good shape. And I know we started off this conversation with a view into Hacker Summer Camp, specifically DEF CON, and the theme there was can't stop the signal. And I think I'm gonna go back to that because for me, this ended up with creating a signal that hopefully others will resonate with. And I want to thank Aaron and Marco for creating this signal. DEF CON drove us to have this conversation, and I'm very grateful that we had it. And hopefully individuals and team leaders and organizations can pick something from this and do some good for themselves and the community.
Thank you, Sean, for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Aaron, until we meet again in person, my friend.
Yep. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Sean.
All
really
right.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Reversing Labs is the leading provider of explainable threat intelligence solutions that dissects complex file-based threats. Its hybrid cloud titanium platform enables digital business resiliency, detects new high-risk threat vectors, and automates SOC and threat hunting processes. Learn more at reversinglabs.com. Imperva is the cybersecurity leader whose mission is to protect data and all paths to it with a suite of integrated application and data security solutions. Learn more at imperva.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Redefining Security podcast. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share ITSPmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.